A lot of people ask me the same thing over and over again. How do I make a narcissist regret everything they've done to me? And the truth is, most people asking that question are already exhausted. You've been drained. You've been twisted into knots. You've been made to feel like you're losing your grip on reality because that's what a narcissist does. They make their truth the only truth, and yours doesn't seem to matter anymore. So let's start by getting clear on something. The goal here is not about revenge. It's not about getting even. Because here's the thing, a narcissist is built in a way that makes them allergic to accountability. They'll do everything they can to sidestep it, twist it, blame you, or rewrite the story so they come out the hero. If you want them to regret everything, you can't go chasing after their apology like it's a prize. You have to shift the focus to yourself because that's the one thing you can control. And ironically, it's the very thing that can make them realize in their own silent, frustrated way that they no longer have control over you. First, understand that regret for them will never look like it does for you. You might imagine them sitting alone, feeling bad, replaying all the times they hurt you, wishing they'd done better. That's not going to happen, not in the way you picture it. Regret for them comes when the source of their control, their supply, their emotional leverage is gone. Regret for them is realizing that you've moved on, that you're not calling, that you're not explaining yourself anymore, that you're not reacting to their bait. It's not the emotional remorse you'd like. It's the sting of losing access to you. That's why the real power move here is distance, and not just physical distance, but emotional and mental distance too. That starts with not engaging in their games anymore. You know the cycle. They poke at you, you defend yourself, they twist your words, you try harder to make them understand, they pretend they don't. Every time you play that game, they win. So you stop playing. When they provoke you, you respond with calm, minimal words or sometimes no words at all. You don't give them the emotional fireworks they're looking for. It's like taking the batteries out of a remote. The buttons are still there, but nothing happens when they press them. That's the first step to making them realize they've lost the influence they thought was permanent. You also have to get brutally honest about why you stayed in their orbit for so long. Not to beat yourself up, but to understand what kept you hooked. Was it the hope that they'd change? Was it fear of being alone? Was it because they were so good at making you doubt your own judgment that you didn't trust yourself to leave? Once you identify that hook, you can cut it. And when you cut it, you stop dancing to their tune. That's where the real shift happens in you. Because here's the truth, nothing frustrates a narcissist more than someone they can't manipulate. When you're no longer predictable, when you no longer take the bait, when you stop explaining and defending and start living your life without their approval, that's when they feel it. It's not loud regret, it's silent. It's the kind that gnaws at them in the quiet moments because they can't figure out how to get you back under their control. You have to reclaim your boundaries, and that's going to feel uncomfortable at first. If you've been conditioned to believe that saying no makes you selfish or cruel, you'll hesitate. But boundaries are not walls to punish people, they're doors to protect you. And here's the trick, you don't announce your boundaries to them like a big speech. You just live them. You stop over-explaining why you can't do something. You stop defending your decisions. You stop answering calls at midnight because they need to talk. You stop letting them treat your life like an open 24-hour convenience store. That's how they learn, not because you told them what the boundary is, but because you enforce it consistently. Now, here's the part that's going to feel counterintuitive. Stop trying to prove yourself to them. A narcissist thrives on making you prove your worth. They'll set up invisible hoops for you to jump through, and the second you make it through one, they move the next one further away. You'll never win that game, so you stop playing it. You don't prove, you live. You start building a life that's so full and rich that you don't even have the time or energy to care about what they think of you. That's the moment when they notice the absence of your attention, and that absence is something they can't easily replace. It's also about healing the parts of you that still need their validation. That's the hardest work because it means looking at why you ever gave so much weight to their opinion in the first place. You have to realize that their approval isn't the gold standard. It's actually worthless currency. They've been handing out counterfeit coins and convincing you they're valuable. Once you see that, you stop spending them. You stop measuring yourself against their shifting, self-serving standards. And when you do that, you strip them of the one thing they've been using to control you, your own self-doubt. Silence is another powerful tool here. Not the kind of silence that's cold and punishing, but the kind that simply removes them from the center of your attention. You don't rush to correct the lies they tell about you. You don't send the long text explaining your side. You don't argue when they paint themselves as the victim. Why? Because every time you do, you feed the story. You keep yourself tethered to their version of reality. Silence starves the story. And yes, they will get louder at first. They'll push harder, bait you more aggressively, try to force a reaction. That's their panic showing. Stay consistent, and they'll eventually realize they're talking into an empty room. Now, I'm going to tell you something that might not feel satisfying at first. You may never see their regret. They're not going to post about it. They're not going to call you one day and admit you were right. They may never say the words you've been waiting to hear. But you'll know. You'll see it in the way they start circling back, testing the waters, sending you those just checking in messages, or reminiscing about the good times. That's them realizing they lost something they thought they owned. And when that happens, the power is entirely in your hands to decide whether you even respond. Making them regret everything isn't about delivering some clever one-liner that finally shuts them down. It's about creating a life that makes their presence irrelevant. It's about building your confidence back up so high that their opinion doesn't even make the list of things you care about. It's about surrounding yourself with people who see you clearly, who value you, who don't make you earn their kindness with obedience. And when you do that, you stop living in reaction to them. And that's the greatest loss they can feel. Here's the ironic thing. The moment you stop needing them to regret anything is usually the moment they start regretting everything. Because they can sense the shift. They can sense you've moved on. They can feel the control slipping through their fingers, and that's the one thing they can't stand. That's when they'll try harder to pull you back in. Maybe with flattery, maybe with guilt, maybe with sudden declarations of change. You'll recognize it for what it is, and you won't bite. Because now you know that the only regret worth anything is the regret you'd feel if you gave up your peace to let them back in. And maybe that's the real victory, not that you've made them regret what they've done, but that you've built a life so steady, so strong, so fully yours, that they no longer have the power to take anything from you. Because regret for them is just realizing they lost the game. But freedom for you is realizing there's no game to play anymore. When you've been around someone who constantly bends reality, the hardest part is trusting your own perception again. You start to second guess your memory, your feelings, even the most basic instincts you have. That's exactly how they want it. Because when you don't trust yourself, you're forced to lean on them for what's true. And that dependency is the leash they hold. To make them feel regret, you don't yank on the leash and fight. You simply slip it off and walk away. The moment you start relying on your own judgment again, without seeking their confirmation, is the moment they lose their grip. But here's the tricky thing. That trust doesn't rebuild itself overnight. You have to prove to yourself that your decisions are worth backing. And yes, you'll make mistakes. You'll misread people. You'll overreact sometimes. That's fine. Because each time you allow yourself to make a choice without running it through the filter of, what would they think? You strengthen that internal muscle. And the stronger it gets, the more immune you become to the manipulation that used to work like magic on you. One of the biggest misunderstandings about making a narcissist regret everything is thinking it happens through confrontation. It doesn't. If confrontation worked, you'd have solved this years ago. You've probably already tried that path, telling them exactly how they hurt you, expecting that if you could just explain it clearly enough, they'd finally understand and change. But all that does is give them more information to twist against you. You tell them what hurt you, they either deny it happened, mock you for being too sensitive, or twist the story so it was somehow your fault. It's exhausting, and it's designed to be. So you take the oxygen out of the fire, you stop feeding them your reactions, you learn to sit in that uncomfortable silence where they're trying to bait you and you don't respond. It feels unnatural at first because you're used to defending yourself, explaining yourself, trying to win their approval. But that silence is not weakness. It's the strongest move you can make because they can't fight with someone who won't step into the ring. And that absence of a fight forces them to deal with something they're not good at themselves. Another thing they hate, and this is where their regret really starts to take root, is seeing you genuinely happy without them. Not fake happy to make them jealous, not posting curated moments to trigger them, but genuinely building a life where your joy doesn't require their presence or permission. They'll notice when you start focusing on your health, your hobbies, your friends, your work, not as a show for them, but as a natural extension of moving forward. Narcissists think they're the center of your universe, so when they see your universe expanding without them, it chips away at the narrative they've built in their heads. They're also deeply unsettled when they realize they can't predict you anymore. A narcissist thrives on patterns. They know what buttons to press and when, because you've been predictable in your reactions. Maybe you always call back when they hang up on you. Maybe you always text after an argument to smooth things over. Maybe you always agree to meet when they're suddenly in town. The moment you break that pattern consistently, they start losing their sense of control. And that unpredictability is like sand in the gears of their manipulation. They'll try harder at first, but eventually they'll start pulling back because the cost of trying to get a reaction is no longer worth the return. And yes, they will test you. They'll throw out little crumbs to see if you bite. Maybe they'll suddenly remember an anniversary. Maybe they'll send a gift. Maybe they'll drop a casual message pretending nothing happened. This is not them changing. This is them checking if the door is still open. And if you're serious about making them regret losing you, that door stays closed unless they've done the deep, painful, consistent work to change. And let's be real, most won't. Here's a subtle but powerful move. Stop explaining your choices. You don't have to justify where you're going, what you're doing, who you're with, or why you said no. Every time you explain, you give them an opening to question, criticize, or twist your reasoning. Instead, you keep it short and final. I can't make it. That doesn't work for me. No long stories, no defensive tone. They may accuse you of being cold, rude, or distant. That's fine. Their discomfort with your boundaries is not your problem to fix. You'll notice something interesting when you start living this way. The balance of power shifts. For so long, they've been the one dictating the terms of your interactions. But when you stop playing by their rules, the dynamic changes. They're forced to react to you instead of the other way around. And that right there is when the regret begins to creep in for them, because they realize they're not the one calling the shots anymore. The real beauty of this approach is that it doesn't just make them regret. It makes you free. Because once you've tasted that freedom, you'll never want to go back. You'll realize you don't need to manage their emotions, tiptoe around their moods, or keep them comfortable at your own expense. You stop living like your peace is negotiable. And when you hold on to that, they can't touch you. Now, let's be clear, their regret will not look like yours. You might wish for a heartfelt confession, a tearful apology, a moment of clarity where they say, "I was wrong." That's the kind of closure you want. But a narcissist's version of regret is far more selfish. It's about them missing what you provided. It's about them realizing they can't replace you as easily as they thought. And while they might never admit it out loud, they will feel it when they see you living unbothered, unaffected, and unreachable. It's also worth saying this: sometimes the best way to make them regret everything is to stop trying to make them regret anything at all. Because the moment your life stops revolving around proving something to them, you win. When you're no longer performing for their acknowledgement or revenge, you're free to put that energy into building a future that has nothing to do with them. And that's when they notice, because they're no longer at the center of your decisions. The irony is, the more you try to show them what they've lost, the more you keep yourself tied to their approval. True power is moving in silence. True power is when they hear about your growth from someone else or not at all. True power is them wondering what you're up to because you're too busy living to tell them. And that mystery will bother them far more than any direct display you could stage. And one more thing, don't confuse their attempts to come back with genuine regret. Narcissists are master opportunists. If they see a crack in your resolve, they'll slip back in, promising change, offering affection, even mimicking accountability. But watch closely, their actions will always tell the truth. If the same patterns show up again, it's not regret, it's just another play for control. The most effective way to make them regret everything is to live in a way that proves they never had the power they thought they did. To show, without saying a word, that their absence did not ruin you, it rebuilt you. To let your life be the evidence, not your words. And that doesn't happen in a day, but with every boundary you hold. Every time you choose peace over drama, every moment you refuse to step back into the role they wrote for you, you get stronger. And the stronger you get, the more powerless they feel. And for someone who feeds on control, that's the deepest form of regret they can experience. At the heart of this entire message is one truth. Making a narcissist regret everything is not about chasing an apology or forcing them to feel the same kind of remorse you would. It's about removing their power over you, emotionally, mentally, and physically, until their control slips away completely. Regret for them isn't heartfelt guilt. It's the sting of losing access to someone they thought they could manipulate forever. That's why the real victory lies in shifting your focus away from them and onto yourself. When you reclaim your boundaries, stop feeding them your reactions, and stop explaining your choices, you break the patterns that gave them influence. You rebuild trust in your own judgment and create a life where their presence is irrelevant. You stop performing for their approval and instead live in a way that centers your peace, your goals, and your happiness. In doing so, you not only take away their leverage, you make it clear, without saying a word, that their opinion no longer defines you. Their regret will never look like yours, but they will feel the absence of your energy, attention, and compliance. And while you may never hear them admit it, the silence you hold and the life you build will speak louder than any confrontation ever could. The moment you no longer need them to regret anything is the moment they start to. Because they can sense they've lost the one thing they valued most, control. And they'll know they can't get it back. That is where your true power lies, and that is the only kind of regret that truly matters.